Welcome to another episode of the Angels Positivity and Love Show. Incredible guests the world over, amazing insights, amazing experiences. And they're here to share their wisdom, what they've learned along the way, and their hearts with all of us. So it's usually a very high vibe guest who's quite often giving service to others. Today, no exception, coming back to us, Marilynn Hughes out of Arizona. I've lost count of the number of books. It's between 105 and 125 books she's put out. The bottom line behind the books is she's helping mankind explore spirituality, explore their own potential. Um, she's literally explored all the different faiths and cultures on the globe. Maybe not every single one, but more than most of us will ever get to if we studied for 30 years. And that too is where she's been at this for a very long time. She's the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. So whether you want to call it remote viewing, out of body travel, we're going to have her get into that, or just tapping your heart to allow the universe to come in much more. She's an expert on all that. She's recognized as such. She's got a film background as well. I'll just say hyper intuitive, hyper generous with her time and how she's spending it in the service of humanity. So with that, Marilynn, welcome back. Good to see you again, and always a delight.
It's always great to be with you, Michael.
Okay, I am just going to give you the easiest softball, not for the first question. What does it mean to be human now that you're at where you're at now? Because you've been doing this a long time. You've had experiences since I'm going to guess age of 7 or 9. I never get that quite right. And you've had the ebbs and flows and what you've learned, and then it changes. Welcome to being human also. Where are we now with what your perspective is on the human condition, the human path?
I think we complicate it a lot more than we really have to. I think being human is really all about learning how to love one another. And it's all about learning how to embody creation in the physical world and in physical form. And what is that? That's embodying love in beauty.
That might be the best answer in 400 taped shows. So I got to mention there's the APL show, APL Spotlight series we just started a year ago, where we bring back amazing guests. Marilyn's been on that before. And then Mind, Body, Spirit panels. I think that's a top answer. Okay, tell us a little bit more. How can a person not try and try all at the same time?
In this world,
Yeah,
in
doing love more. There's not a specific route they have to take, or is there?
well, you know, I might go back to Yoda on this. Try, not try. You know, how can they try or not try? Again, I'd go back to I think people make it more complicated than it has to be. Um, really loving all that you see and all that is around us and everyone is not difficult. Really hating is what takes the effort. Because what do we do when we hate? We have to come up with differences. We have to come up with boundaries. We have to come up with all the reasons why this is differentiated and that's why we must hate it, right? So that's what takes a lot of effort. Love is what is this calm emptiness that doesn't require a lot of effort. It's sitting back and realizing that all is worthy of love because God created it, and I don't have to differentiate. All things are not intended to be alike. All things are not intended to agree with me or be similar or identical to me. In fact, because that is what creation is. It's a panorama of beauty and difference that God intended. And so I can just literally sit back and not try because I can just love what I see.
Contrast. Do you have a nature experience in the last 3 months that has drilled that point home?
Well, I mean, I have my animals that live in my house every day who drill it into me every day, but even in my gardening, I experienced that. I've experienced it throughout my life. I spent most of my adult years living in the mountains of Colorado. Now I'm living in the desert in Arizona, and you see how there is beauty even in the differences. We may have our preferences. I loved the mountains, but the beauty of the desert is equal. It's just different, right? And so these experiences that we have in nature teach us that uh, difference is not does not denote good or bad. So for instance, so I might prefer fluffy little animals, like the lynxes and the foxes and the deer that I saw in Colorado. I've come to realize that, the cute little reptiles and all of the interesting things that we see in Arizona, they're just as cute. They're just as beautiful. And I've developed this appreciation for these different types of creatures that are not fluffy, you know, and that this difference is beautiful. Uh, it's all intended. It all has its place. It's all even in terms of like when you're looking in your gardening. Having been in different parts of the country throughout my life, and I've always been into gardening, living in the Midwest where water was never an issue, rain was abundant, and you could grow every single thing that you wanted to grow. And then being in the high mountains where altitude affected what you could grow, and then having to come to the desert and realizing, oh, wow, so every place you go, there's a preference, right? Things that can grow well. I can grow citrus here. I can grow desert fruits like pomegranates and guavas, but I cannot grow tomatoes or broccoli here. Or, but so every place I go, there are things that thrive, but and there are things that do not thrive, but you adapt to the circumstances and you enjoy what is preferred and what is great beauty wherever you are, and you do not discard what was beautiful everywhere else, but you do not have to you do not have to lose the panorama of life, which allows for the differences. We could go to the Great Mojave Desert and nothing would be there, right? It would just be the sand. And there too would be something to be experienced that is unique and different. It might just be that it's really, really hot and nothing grows there. But you have these differences, and the differences are intended. They're intended. This is creation itself. So I guess what I'm trying to say, nature teaches us that nothing is meant to be identical or the same, and those differences are beautiful. And that's something that we miss a lot. We want similarities, and the differences are God's creation. God is trying to create new and different things, and we are uncomfortable with that. And there's no reason for the discomfort.
I had a few things pop up. One is the run yesterday, a 7.5 mile run in North San Antonio, very hilly. I'm on I think a 12 or 14% slope between the Starbucks and McDonald's, if anyone knows Stone Oak. And I had a red-tailed hawk flight literally just 20, 30 feet over my head, a little lower, a little plumper, almost looked like an owl, but wasn't. And I was talking to Geronimo at the time because it's a big hill. And I'm like going back and forth, anything to keep the feet moving. And I have two quotes for you that I think are
Okay.
right along with what you just said. One's from a NASA astronaut, and another is just I got it from a Netflix film. But the Netflix film, in the end, love is what shows us life in different colors. So I feel like,
Beautiful, beautiful. Love
yeah,
that.
I feel
Yeah.
like you're pointing to love big time. And then the NASA astronaut, Story Musgrave, tried twice to get him on the show. It will not happen, unfortunately, but we love him and big shout out to him. Getting out of the comfortable path, that's what exploration is all about. And so I wanted to have you shift
Yeah.
this to as we walk our path, we do get a chance to bring things in. Some people like to call it manifesting. Talk to us a little bit about in the face of the ebb and flow of life, how can we do a little more attention focus? And you're the expert on this because take that out to the extreme and it's leaving the body to explore even more. But let's just do the manifesting, the how can we bring things, how can we pay attention more?
Well, that's, kind of, a reference to mindfulness, right? And paying attention more is obviously one of the things I think that would be the simplest answer for all of us in our society right now is stop talking and listen more. Listen to what other people are saying and actually hear them, and be interested in understanding what it is they're saying, understanding their point of view. I think a lot of what we're actually seeing all around us is a lot of people talking. And so the first thing would be stop talking. Okay. And so then you want to actually start paying attention. So it's paying attention to others, actually being interested in others, but paying attention then to all things that are going on around you. Now, if you're talking about the focus that's required for spiritual growth, then you're going to have to take that focus in a different direction, of course, which is going to go more inward then. And of course, where this goes now, and ironically, this also applies to what we're seeing in our world today, but it applies to us individually, which is take that focus we've seen a lot of this external focus of, I don't like this person because they say or believe this, or I believe that they are this. You have to turn that around because this is what the path of purification is. This means you have to turn your focus towards yourself now. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. Now we focus on what am I doing? Who am I? What do I believe? What do I actually do? What are the fetters, the hindrances, the controls? What are the sins that I'm committing? What are the unkindnesses that I am offering to those around me? And what are the things within my heart that are hateful that I need to root out? Where is love absent within me? And that's what we want to do. If we could all start the path of purification, which is basically what, my book, The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism, that's what this is teaching people to do, the path of purification. We turn it all back and we stop focusing outward. We focus inward. This is the path which leads us to the spiritual acceleration that stops the karmic circling, the karmic cycles, which lead so many of us to repetitive incarnations in this realm where we might end up in the same boat again at the end of this life, rather than the potential for accelerating at the end of this life and going on to the next phase of evolution. And so that's what we have to do. We have to focus then on where is love lacking in me? Where is it not manifesting in me? Where am I? Because we have to remember, anytime you hate something or someone, that is not coming from God. That's coming from somewhere else. So you want to take love and start moving that energy in to replace any of those darknesses, whether it's hatred, anger, unkindnesses, even just unkind thoughts towards others or scenarios. You want to think, well, if love is God, right, then everything that I am has to be transformed into love. And so all those parts of me that are not that are the things that need to be purified. That's where your focus has to go.
Speaking of focus, laser-like focus, Marilynn, I love this. Everything is your instruction. Show love always, and regard others as yourself generously and without fixation. The third one was from angels. I think everything is your instruction might be from, I mispronounce everything, but Pema Chodron, who studied under Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. I'm pronouncing that correctly, hopefully.
I think you are, yeah.
Okay, so you're really hitting on something here. There seems to be a lot of instruction available for everybody right now. If you look at social media or the news, everyone's having a reaction or rejecting, and that's all a form of fear, worry, stress, ego, logos, rationale, or unlove or unconsciousness, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely not being here. And I think Mother Teresa said it best, and this is where we're going to get you to hit on this topic a little more. She said, if you judge someone, you have no time to love them. Now, that's a tall order, and a lot of people like to knock her, which is a little ironic. Talk to us more about this whole. There's a lot of Judgy McJudgersons out there, and there are people doing a lot of love, or people learning right now that love is a smoother route. You don't end up, while you think you're boxing someone else, you're really landing every blow up here.
Oh, I love that, what you just did there. That's so true. So let's go back to Mother Teresa's words, because Mother Teresa was beautiful. And so if you're judging someone, you don't have time to love them. I want people to think about that before we even speak of it, because what she said is basically everything is in those words. That's really the bottom line now, isn't it? Right? So, and this applies to everything. And so, for just a moment, I'll take Mother Teresa, because yes, there have been critics of Mother Teresa, and um, since she's such an easy person to defend, I'm going to just go ahead and do that. Um, it's just so hard to believe that anyone would judge a Mother Teresa. But here's a few thoughts. We judge people by the worst things they've ever done, even though we want to be judged by the best things we've done. Um, we judge people who have done things so much greater than we will ever do, even though we know that. We know that we have been told by the Lord we will be judged in the manner in which we judge. um, but we judge someone who spent her every waking breath feeding the poor, tending to the poor and the sick. And people pick at things that they find that generally are really not controversial if you actually know the facts, but they will pick at them and find them. With other people, like with what happened this week, they use 6 or 20-second sound bites to decide what a person stands for. Again, we judge people by those kinds of things, and yet we don't want to be judged that way now, do we? So we have to go back to, what are we doing? And so if you're judging people, you don't have time to love them. And if you're judging people, you also don't have the opportunity to be loved, because you are becoming a vessel of forces that you yourself do not even understand. When you find yourself, so when you feel love, and that's moving from you and through you, that is the Holy Spirit. But when you feel this rage and hatred and we're not talking about a holy righteous rage that might happen. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're talking about people when you're feeling, and we've all felt this way, so let's just be honest and real. When you're just feeling this rage and this hatred, or just disliking someone you've never met, you don't know, whether it's Mother Teresa or someone else, that's not coming from God. So you have to ask yourself, what's happening to me? Because it's not coming from God. What is using you? And do you want to be used in that way? Okay, so we know where it's coming from. It's coming from the other side. And that is moving from below and into you and stirring you up with all of this negativity and all of this chaos and destruction. And whatever chaos and destruction is moving out of you to other people or to this world, don't think for a minute that chaos and destruction is not also destroying you. If you are judging other people, not only do you not have time to love them, you do not have the opportunity to receive the love of God. You are blocking it. We're talking about focus. When you sit back and you say, I revoke the permission I have given you to do this within me, and you allow God's love back in, and you not only reintegrate the ability to love again, but to be loved. And then your focus is able to be restored. I'm not saying it will happen instantaneously. It may take a little bit of discipline and time to remove that chaotic energy that you've allowed in. And you may have to pray about it and discipline your mind a little bit. May take, might happen immediately, might take a couple days, and may take a few weeks. Depends on your situation. But discipline, focus, and you will root it out and revoke the permission you've given for it to be there. And then you will have the ability to love and be loved again. And that energy will start moving through you. The love of God is for everyone. It's not just for some, it's for everyone. And so this is something you can choose. And by choosing to focus and by actually identifying what's happening to you, you can focus and change it. And this is actually part of how you start that purification process, because then you're like, okay, but for the grace of God go I, and then you start this process of looking into interiorly at the things that you yourself need to address, your own fetters, hindrances, and things that you might need to root out to bring you closer to God. And if you want to become closer to God, what is that? You're moving closer to love, because that is what God is. He's an emanation of love. And so that's what you're doing. You're rooting out those things that keep you from moving closer and closer to love.
Marilyn, incredible again. I love this. I've got a couple little things I'll try to touch on. And then if we could lightly dance like a Olympic mogul skier, only touching the tops of the moguls, and we'll get through the concept of negativity and maybe a little more, but very briefly, we won't put our focus there too much in a second. Long time ago, 10, 14 years ago, somehow this got into my head that if you can give a Formula One race car driver name, a Brazilian soccer star name, Pavarotti, an opera singer name to your ego, you give a nice big, as many syllables as you can get. Mr. Higglesworth, I think is what I called mine. If I would suggest to people and trying to assist them, if they could identify their ego, their thinking, their heaviness, if it ever kicked in, the judging, if you ever wanted to give it a name, Mr. or Mrs., whatever, and you started to feel heaviness, you could address your ego respectfully. If you give it this, it'll give you a black eye. Offer it a hug, but you got to be a loving person to be able to offer a hug. And it's because it's got to be legit. And so I know he suggested that a lot. And so, hello, Mr. Higglesworth. How are you today? Can I offer you a hug? Whoop, gone. It doesn't want any love. And you got at least a 3-minute breather before it comes back, or maybe 10 minutes, or whatever. If you're really offering a big hug, maybe longer. But so I'm in my kitchen in Austin, Texas, 2 houses ago, one morning with a 20-ounce Starbucks mug full. Had this been a year or two earlier, I would have dropped the mug and it would have shattered everywhere. I'd still be cleaning up the spills, 10 years later, the drops. It would have gone everywhere. But I was like, oh, wow, those are some heavy thoughts. That is not me. I'm a pretty lighthearted enthusiasm guy. And I'm like, whoa, I better take my own advice. This is an opportunity and do what you're always suggesting to be done. So I'm like, hello, Mr. Higglesworth. How are you today? Would you like a hug? Every fire alarm in my house, top to bottom, went off all at once. And I'm like shaking mug, didn't spill any, set it on the counter. I would have dropped it a year earlier, no problem. And I called my lifeline, who was this amazing psychic a couple towns away. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? And she's like, don't worry about it. You were just a little pushy, 51% pushy. It pushed back. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to mention that. And I've only run into negativity, whether it's seeing negativity, darkness, just a little ball of light once, some other stuff. But the little ball of light, I was so not, I don't like the word confident. I was so comfortable in my home, so much light that the little ball of light was actually trying to leave. And so I put a window open and all that, and it had no place to go. Very happy house at the time. And then there's been extremes, people getting jumped and they were acting really bad. And I'm going to leave out all the details. I had a workplace once, somebody massively got jumped. When I talked to angels about it, they're like, yeah, don't put too much focus there. But yes, it was a big deal. That person had to leave the workplace. They were making people cry, miserable. I wanted to just touch on that briefly. There's negativity and there's some grander stuff in the works, but let's talk positive. There's a higher vibration, new consciousness emerging. Details are details, not so important if you want to quote Jesus on this. Love is love, like chance for all to grow and expand, but it's free will. Can you talk to us about all those little components or big components or the chessboard? What's going on with life, with mankind? Is there a higher frequency, a bigger expansion? Is Mother Earth driving this as well? Animals as well? What's going on with this whole new kumbaya?
Oh, okay. Well, there is there is there's there's actually a bit of a, there's a battle between the two actually that's going on, and so there is a portion of spiritual humanity that's moving towards that. There's a portion of spiritual humanity that's really trying to push for things to go the other direction. And so you have that battle between the principalities and powers, which are continuing to go on because this is that kind of a world. So for souls who are trying to awaken and who are awakening, there is always a push to move you higher and higher and higher into higher and higher vibrations. And this is what you will experience in out of body travel if you pursue this. And also, if you pursue understanding of these spiritual matters, whether you have out of body experiences or not, you can increase your vibration in other ways. But yes, the push is for souls to go higher. But there is always, and this is a mortal realm, so that means the two sides are always kind of at each other's throats, kind of, and so there is that. But there is, of course, this desire of the higher spheres for as many souls as possible to be pulled upwards into higher and higher realms of development. In out of body travel, the way that plays out is that souls will start with learning some basic things and then they start moving through the realms. So each realm has something to teach them, and they will have spiritual teachers, they will have angels and spiritual guardians that teach them in every realm. So there are an infinite number of realms that go upward from the fourth realm, which is the one that overlaps the third dimension where we exist here. And it will take you up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and I'm sure well beyond that, into higher and higher gradations of light. And each one of these realms has its teaching. The first one is about oneness, where we understand the oneness of life. We learn about the multiplicity of karma and how we learn here in this world through the multiplicity of lives and how those things come together with our higher self. At the end of that cycle, when a soul chooses to go through the purification process and bring all that together, that bring that knowledge together. And then there are realms from there that move into the initiations into the mysteries. And what are the mysteries? The mysteries are these energetic, uh, uh, they literally, I'm going to try to explain it a little better. because it's hard, when you say mysteries, people are like, well, what's that? And it's things like where you're taken to see like the Star of Bethlehem, where it's actually stored in the galactic heavens, where you're taken to the ancient Egyptian pyramids and taken through ancient rites into the Sphinx, or below to the Hall of Records. It's things where you're taken into ancient religious or spiritual mysteries in Atlantis, Lemuria, and all over in our world, but then also in the higher spheres of heaven. And then each one of these mysteries has an energetic thrust. So every time you go through an initiation into a mystery and pass through it, you're increasing your vibration, so to speak. And then there's the rites of passage, which is similar, and you're going through a higher level of the mysteries. And so then you're going into understanding like what would be called the ascension mysteries. So this is learning about all of the secrets that are in relation to achieving immortality from this realm, this third and fourth dimension. And then you start going into higher and higher gradations of realms, light, and knowledge. And so if a soul is seeking upwards, and you'll find that this is actually something that is held true throughout history. If you read texts like the Pistis Sophia, there's all of these gradations that the initiates would go through. There's other ancient texts that talk about these mystery realms, and also these spiritual realms that souls would go through. And so, any period of time where a soul is prepared and ready to do this, they will be thrust through these things and guided and led higher and higher and higher. And so, I don't know that this is like particularly associated with this time. But the reason it feels like it is because when we ourselves are awakening and we are opening up to the spiritual world, that's how it seems to us. It feels like the whole world, the whole spiritual thing is opening up. But what's happening is it's like we are having this great awakening in our own soul, and thus we are experiencing it alongside any and every other soul who is experiencing it at any given moment. And so it seems like it's a worldwide event, but it's something that continues on throughout the ages, because this is part of the process and purpose of this mortal realm, the third and fourth dimension, to help souls to achieve this process. And that's part of the reason why out of body travel can be so accelerative, because it takes a soul and starts pushing them up. So like for instance, if you normally might take like 20 years on one concept to understand, if you start experiencing out of body travel, you might go from having this like flat forward projection to straight upwards. Yes. And so something that takes you 20 years, you might understand it in 2 months. You'll be taken through it energetically, and it alters your frequency and vibration to the point where then you're just moving so much quicker through these stages of development, that you become capable of ascending this realm at the end of your life in this time. And so that's why out of body travel is such an important tool for that purpose.
With your permission, let's back up just a smidge and ask about
Sure.
something that's very practical for everyone. They put on the news, they read a newspaper article, they react to a YouTube video that's like political in nature, or someone's being judgy. How
Okay.
how can someone do a spot check to test? I mean, I'm not saying they're not 100% factually correct or they're correct in the way they feel, but as Angel said once, there is no right or wrong. There's proper understanding, and I think you've been making the argument that that proper understanding is love. How can a person learn to do a quick timeout and check their pulse and figure out, are they here or here? I mean, that could be one of the most practical tools of all time.
Okay, well, and I would have to say that there is objective truth. So there is objective truth, and there is good and evil. Those things do exist, and they do exist in the realms of the mortal realms, where good and evil do battle between themselves. And so people will have, as they should, a discernment or the ability to hear something and be able to say, that's not good, or that's really good. Those are, they're not supposed to become like automatons and just be like, oh, whatever happens is fine, oh, 100 million people were killed. Well, okay, they're not supposed to be doing that, so there is objective truth. And so objective truth um teaches them, and they would be taught this in the mystical spheres. They learn about good and evil and how to understand the energetic truth as it pertains to God, and how the eternal determines the energetic validity of any interaction. So they have a reaction, and the reaction, it's okay if they have a reaction. The place where the difficulty comes in is when they're not able to get past the initial reaction and capable of moving into the next space of letting it go. We have to get to the place of recognizing, where do I have power to act and where do I not have power to act? And then also recognizing, for instance, let's say, where should I act? So, like, for instance, I should not pick up a firearm and go cause harm, right? So there's obvious things that we would consider obvious, but there are people who obviously think otherwise, right? So there's the normal reaction of, oh, that upsets me because I believe that's wrong. It's okay. That's an all right reaction. But then it's also important that you're capable of taking the next step, which is then understanding, listening. Okay, so then listen to what really happened and what people are saying about, well, why was this action taken? Okay, so let's say it's a political story or something like that. Why was the action taken, regardless of what side you're on, and try to understand. Okay, then you're at this point over here. You either disagree or agree. That's fine. Agree or disagree. And then sit back, decide, what control do I have? And your control may be simply, I either vote or I don't vote. It may be dependent upon what your calling in life is. If you're a police officer and you're called in to deal with certain things, then you may have something that you're required to respond to. If you're a regular citizen, like personally, I don't have any major control over the politics of this country except in the ballot box. So for me, my response would be, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to vote. And I'm going to understand that there's a lot of people, and I either agree or disagree, and I'm going to vote for this or that. And I'm going to understand that the people who believe this believe very strongly that they're right. And I may vehemently disagree with them, or I may even think some of them have bad intentions. I may think that. But I'm going to understand, and I'm going to love them anyway, because what I think, I don't know them. It doesn't matter what I think. It's not my place to make a judgment against anybody. I'm not God. It's my place to love people and to try to understand. Another part of this, in terms of what you're bringing up here, is just something else that I've talked to a few other people about, which is bringing ourselves back to a previous time that many of us are old enough to remember, which would be like when we were maybe 10, 15, 20 years old, before the internet was introduced. And psychological studies have shown that knowing every horrible thing that happens in the world at every given moment is actually psychologically not healthy for us, right? And so what we have to also recognize is that we have to choose to turn some things off. because we don't have control over everything that happens in the world. And so trying to process all of the bad things that happen in the world on every given day is probably not actually very helpful, you know? And when you go back to the way things were like 40 years ago, we knew about some things that happened locally, and we would hear the nightly news with Walter Cronkite, right? And we would hear it once a day, you know? And so we did not have this massive processing factory of everyone's trying to process every horrible event in the world. We don't have the ability to process every horrible event in the world, and doing so doesn't actually help anyone, right? So that's part of when you sit back and you say, what control do I have? What can I do? And you have to say, okay, so it's the police officers who are going to handle that poor Ukrainian woman with the with that train. It's going to be, law enforcement that's going to handle, from here on out that assassination. It's going to be, there are other people who are in place who are in charge. And, early in my life, my ex-husband was involved in a lot of law enforcement. So I'm familiar with when you are part of being responsible for some of those aspects of things, but then when you are no longer, because you're retired, you know what I mean, then you step back because there's nothing purposeful that you can do except add to the chatter and the noise, you see? And
So
go
let's
ahead.
bring that exact focus then to what a person can focus on. You've touched on it before, and I'll read two quotes. One from
Okay.
Geronimo, and I think one from an angel named Dale, and maybe someone else. So Geronimo said in 2017, people choose negativity, thinking, judging, reacting, etc., over heart, often without realizing it. They still suffer the consequences. Ignorance, not an excuse. So I'd love for you in a second to talk about thinking and again, how to spot it. But then here's one more, and this is Dale and Angel and Geronimo all over again here. And this is going to be a great way to leap forward. To be your truest warrior self, you must believe in yourself. That means never giving up and trusting with 100% certainty that all is good in any outcome. So, can you talk to us about these dynamics and how where you place your focus is where you place it, and how you spend your energy is how you spend it? There's thinking, there's awareness, there's your inner peaceful, fearless self or authentic self that I think the Buddhists talk about. Can you talk about that more?
Well, the thinking, you absolutely are responsible for how you think. So, yes, this is part of what we're talking about, which is going through this process of actually deciding, well, what am I going to do with my thoughts? And when you recognize that you do not have anything that you can actually add to the fray, then you step back and you actually do kind of let it go. And you actually go to prayer for that person. If it's bothering you, you pray for the soul of that person, you pray for that situation, or you pray for the people who do have control. One of the things that people forget to do, like if they're upset with how things are going, pray for your government, pray for the people who are in charge. Whether you are happy with who's in charge or not, pray that God and the Holy Spirit will guide them. Prayer is powerful. I've seen it in the out-of-body travel state, how prayer moves things. So don't forget that is part of where you do have power. So go back to that. Step back away from the chatter and the noise and don't add to it. And then, well, I'll pray. If you still feel moved to do something, pray for those who do. And then we go back to it's not that it's not that things are just good no matter what happens. It's that God has the capacity to make good out of anything that happens. So there can be great evil. People do experience great evil, but God does have the ability to make great good out of great evil. And so we have to always be willing to step back and receive that. Now, it is also extremely important to remember that when someone has been put through something that was a great evil, there is an energetic imprint from that that is so powerful that it's like an energetic hit. It's a wound. It's massive, and people do not know and don't know how this is because they haven't been wounded like that person has. So we as fellow human beings have to understand and use this kindness and love and patience because it takes time for people to process through things like this and allow for something to be transformed by God into something good. And it's not always going to be immediately apparent. And sometimes it takes um, time, and it's different with every single case, and it's impossible. So no judgment again. This is important because we don't want to do the thing where something terrible happens to another person and we start with, oh, but God's going to do great things with it, and you lost your son, but oh well, don't do that. This is where your compassion, your sympathy, and your understanding of the great loss they have suffered is important. And then you step back also, and you become and are willing to become an instrument in whatever that transformation could be. But you never minimize that loss to the people who have had it. You let them process through, and if you are close enough to that person that this is something you are a part of, you help them, and you also, as a friend, you transform with them. You know, that's really important. So it's important that when we talk about what's going on in the world, we withdraw our thoughts. We withdraw our chatter and our noise because there's plenty of chatter and noise, and it does no one any good. And so it's identifying then, well, does who has control over this situation, and then okay, if I'm going to do anything, I will offer my energetic assistance through prayer, good thoughts, things like that, but I will withdraw my chatter. And then if you're dealing with the situation that is very difficult and you're close to that person, then you acknowledge the significance of that situation and you are there as a friend, and you are willing to process with that friend, and you are willing to be patient and disciplined, and you are also willing to be expectant for that moment when the Holy Spirit does transform into something greater. Um, but yes, so most and many things can be transformed into something greater, but we can never, part of what does make something greater, and I come to you with this from having worked in the church ministries for many years, and a lot of it was funerals and grief support. Part of what the greater thing often is the love and support that we offer to people when they go through stuff. Sometimes that's the greater thing, you see? And we forget how important that is. Just the little things, it's like, oh, we have to come up with something to make this okay. Sometimes it's, no, we don't. We just need to be there. We need to be there. We need to be a shoulder to cry on and a hand to hold. And we need to be a sincere, loving friend. And that's the miracle. That's what your angel is talking about, that we can make a greater good by becoming a united community around that person who is in pain. And that and I'm getting totally slammed with energy, that is sometimes the miracle that comes of some of the worst things that happen to good people. You know what I mean?
And I'm such a blank right now. I can barely remember anything, but I had a guest who I love. I think it's Teresa Shentz, who has been on a few times or a bunch of times, and I want to have her back on. Um, she said something that was really wild. I had never thought of it this way. But if you don't know the person, another way to go, it's still sending love, prayer, light, words through the heart, whatever you want to call it, universal love, consciousness, Christ consciousness. Send it to
Yeah.
the angel team for that person or the situation, and they'll know how to distribute it. So if you need a more other way to do it, does that still work in your?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I like that idea. Yeah, you do
Yeah,
that or
I
ask
like
your
that.
guardian angel to go talk to their guardian angel and see
Yeah.
what, and then,
I
you
thought that
do
was
that. And you can always, you pray and you ask, and sometimes you'll get guidance as to if there's a way to reach out. And sometimes it's if it's someone you don't know, it might be sending flowers or a card, or something that is a little bit, less close, but people are very, very touched by that. I know that having worked with many widows and widowers, that long after the funeral has passed, they're still reading the cards that people sent. And they talk about how they love reading those cards and how grateful they are of all these people that thought of them at that moment. And so it's just little things that we can do. And sometimes we forget that acknowledging someone's pain has a great deal of power rather than trying to change the pain.
for the person
Just to go, I'm sorry.
or the person. Like sometimes you have a reaction, you meet somebody, they did something, and you're like, I'll pray for them, or I'm sending them prayers, but in a way that's meant to change them and not honor the situation, even if it was a not so hot situation. I think that's
Right.
what Teresa was talking about. The safest way is send it to the angels. They know how to distribute this the right way, beyond
Yeah.
what the perspective might be. If it's I mean, I guess they're all limited perspectives, but
Well, and one thing I would add to that too is, if I might, and I apologize if I'm going off on a tangent here, but one of the things too, just in the same line of what we're all talking about here, is we all think that we know how everyone should be, right? And this is one of the things, you talk about how should we be thinking? How do we focus? This is another one of how we bring this love in. What if we actually sit back and consider the possibility that we're not always right, and that these other people, we're always thinking, oh gosh, if only they thought like me, you know. And the beautiful reality is they don't think like us because God created them to not think like us. And part of our challenge is to find the beauty in the fact that we are all created to be so different and find a way to love one another and stop trying to uh, make us alike and identical.
I love it. And when you said early on about, I don't like the expression you get stamped when you come into interaction with negativity, evil, whatever, certain situations you get stamped. But immediately I was like, oh my God, I know that after that workplace, it doesn't matter what the details were, but somebody got jumped massively by maybe the biggest negativity, according to angels, I will hopefully see for a long time. Making people cry, just being in the room, they would try to break you down and get you to cry and stuff like that. It was great.
Wow.
They got removed from the workplace. That's fun. But I know that my teeth clenched at night for like 10 years after I had to get a teeth guard. And then
Yeah.
I had knees up and there was, oh, hand clenching at night. Now that's all gone, but I had completely forgotten about it till you mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, it was a long time back and certain little ripples. And so I want to go back to big picture for you. I'm going to give you a quote from an angel named Abe. He's the Abraham of old, biblical. He'll tell you he wasn't the greatest person back in the day, but he's a grandfather figure, really nice on everyone's team. He said, what
Yeah.
about compassion to mankind? Basic questions are eternal and a key part of what it is to be human. So I wanted to give you that quote. What about compassion to mankind? Basic questions are eternal and a key part of what it is to be human. I thought that was deep. And then I have another one for you. Oh, here. From an angel named Dale, and how this is about continued growth and expansion. So he was saying this is not about knowing, but continued learning. Few humans fully comprehend the difference here. And I thought that those two are two of the deepest quotes in thousands and thousands of quotes. So I'm even lucky that I know that those are smart quotes. What's your reaction to both of those? Are they okay?
Oh, I think they're great.
Oh,
The first one, compassion is, what we are here to generate because that's part of what love is, and compassion upon everyone, including ourselves, but everyone. And then, yes, that is exactly what we're here is to learn more and more and more about the mechanics of existence and how and why we're here and who we really are inside and what we can do to really move closer to the all holy God, which is love. And so that's all exactly it. Yes, in a nutshell.
well, we're going to do a lightning round in a second, but I'm thinking of I got in my head just now, and I wish I had brought it with me, and I do have it somewhere. Um, I am hoping I can spot this in 20 seconds or less, but we're going to take a couple steps together in just a second,
Okay.
go lightning round here, and I know that I have it a different way. Hold on. There's a angels, there's an angels book by a Sufi author. I think it's called Angels Unveiled. It's a beautiful book. I have it on my website, suggested reading, but ornate cover and all these stories of angel interventions from
Yeah,
11.
you mentioned it to me before. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, and you showed me the cover. It was a very
Okay.
pretty
But
cover.
it's weird that that comes up twice because I don't remember us talking about it before. But it shares just different. I mean, the Sufis have a very intricate way to look at it all, and
And I love the Sufis.
yes,
Yes.
it's on the website. You can't miss it. It almost looks like a Middle Eastern cover. It is a Middle Eastern cover. Duh. Okay, so what I wanted to do was who was your favorite figure along the way? I know there's been hundreds or thousands, and this is impossible. So no one's taking offense for when it's whatever really, whoever said, pick me, Mary, Sri Shirdi Sai Baba, along the way. Eyes closed, dream time. Eyes closed, out of body travel. This way, that way, in human form. Who's coming in first? That is just the most amazing, loving figure. What happened? And we're giving a different sort of take here, a different vibe. We've gone lightning round game show. Did you have a figure at one point, Mary, Jesus, somebody? But what was where were you? It wasn't at a Dairy Queen.
I mean, can I give you more than one?
Oh, please, like three, four. I mean, that's almost the name of the show is a lot of experiential. This was happening. I had a woman in St. Thomas who has an India background and her car broke down. Everybody on that island knows each other in the US Virgin Islands. And so two strangers in a truck show up. I think it was a radiator, so you cannot touch it with bare hands. The two men used bare hands on the radiator. And I'm forgetting who it was exactly. It was like Gabriel and Sri Shirdi Sai Baba did everything, got her to a safe house, made sure she called her home and was getting to be picked up. But maybe the car was working. You have to watch the video to get the real story. I can't remember. But it was divine happening. But we're not talking radiators here for you. Where were you? What happened? Dream time, out of body, or physical? What's the first one?
Okay. Can I give you like a little bit of a list? Can I just be a little bit off cuff?
You've had a lot. So, but go ahead. Yeah.
And I'll just give you and I'll just do a disclaimer that with several of these, I've had multiple experiences. A few of them have had just one or two, but I'm going to throw in like the faves with some of the most stunning things just because, if that's all right. So, I mean, obviously, I've had lots of things with Jesus Christ, the Blessed Mother, and Saint Michael, and they were amazing. So, like, I'll just throw out, you wanted some examples. One of the most beautiful things with Christ was when I came up behind him and he was in this throne, and he had the golden crown, and this was an experience where I was seeing him as Christ the King, and he was teaching me about mystical captivity and and basically mystical theology, and it was beautiful. With the Blessed Mother, I've seen her many times. I'll just go with one that's a little bit different. I've seen her like in the where she wore these robes of white and pink and the redemption robes. But the one that I think will surprise your viewers the most is when she came out of a Pleiadian starship in robes of purple and white with a gold gilded big crown. And I didn't realize immediately who she was because she came out of this Pleiadian starship. She comes out and a crowd starts forming in the spiritual world around her, walks into a Methodist church, and I'm coming up to her because I'm just drawn to her. And I touch her robe and I look in her face and I'm like, oh my God. She was called the Lady in Light. And I was like, oh my God, you're the Blessed Virgin Mary. And I just realized she'd come out of a Pleiadian starship. It was so amazing. And then Saint Michael, the Archangel. Oh my gosh, I've had so many amazing things with him. I remember he took me up to the top of this beautiful mountain inside this huge, it was like a majestic, you have to remember the archangels in the mystical spheres are huge. So they're like giants, they're massive. Sometimes they'll appear to people as people of our size, but when you see them in their reality, they're massive, they're huge. So he took me up to this, and it was like a church, it was a building, but it was inside, it was like there was a singular cross, and it was a huge, like concrete building open, and he had me lie on the ground, and the archangels were dancing in the sky above me in the swirling nebula and all this beautiful stuff. And then they were doing these initiatory rites and teaching me something about the archangels, and it was just stunning. But I want to kind of throw in some of the different ones because I've had amazing stuff. Like I remember when the Buddha came to me many, many, many times, but I'm going to talk about, well, there's one time he came and he took me into this realm of exquisite beauty, and it was like cloudiest, white, white clouds. And he pulled me into it. It was like, a jerking sensation. And you entered into this energy. And he said, I'm taking you into the energy of wonderment, devotion, and humility. And you entered into it. And I stayed in that energy, and it was so beautiful. It was like, basking in the glow of, this emanation of God. It was so beautiful. And it was like when I left that, I understood something so magnificent. It was so beautiful. Um, but I also want to throw out um, like there was this one spiritual battle where, the Blessed Mother and Jesus had come. It was a really intense spiritual warfare. In most of your spiritual warfares, you're going to see, Christ comes, Saint Michael sometimes comes. It's usually Christ, and he usually vanquishes, but this was an especially fierce battle. And so the Blessed Mother was there, Christ was there, St. Michael was there, the Buddha was there. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and this is the only time this happened in a spiritual warfare, Zarathustra comes barreling in green, this emerald green, which was so gorgeous. And it was just, he had some kind of an emerald green thing around his neck, but his robe was just I still see it to this day. And they all went in and vanquished whatever it was that was attacking me. But I will never forget because I was like, Zarathustra. you know? It was so amazing. And then it's also the extraterrestrials, the extraterrestrials, who have taken me to these other worlds like the Pure Lands, but the Pure Lands where all the masters reside. So I mean I could go into that too, but that's a whole nother, I guess I'm getting carried away here. But so the Pure Lands is a place where all the masters go. It's a planet, has two suns and four moons, and Avalokiteshvara just floats around on her cloud, and you have Buddhas underneath trees and Native Americans. Some of my favorite characters in my books that are not characters but real, spirits were like Red Jacket, who was this, one of the loves of my lives, you know what I mean, who was a Native American. And then some of the Native American spiritual guides like Cheyenne and Longhair, who were uh, teachers of mine, and Kutahay, my own higher self, whose name is Odyssey. Um, there's so many, my goodness. And, many, many saints that I've seen, but saints of many religions, Uh, and then the extraterrestrials, I've seen many different races. And so, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Alpha Centaurians, and there's this unique one that I called them to the Tibetans. They didn't call themselves that, but I called them the Tibetans because they had a special connection with the Tibetan people. And there was this other race that I have no name for that was so special because they allowed me to touch this one being who's just a being of light, lived in a world that had moved and evolved all the way into light and life. They were so far beyond our evolution that it was really, really hard for them I could not travel there, but they allowed me to touch them, and I could go there and experience it for like an hour by touching him. And he allowed me to do this. And it was this beautiful world of light. Everything was just light, and everything was such an advanced state of love. There was no evil, no darkness, nothing like that. It's not like a mortal world like we live in. And it was just so beautiful. And when I got pulled back, I begged him, let me stay in your world, please. And it was like, no, we can't let you do that. We have to evolve. We have to evolve and become compatible to them. You know, we have to earn it, you know what I mean? And it was just such an amazing experience. And so, I've had so many adventures. I remember seeing, this is something I painted because it was so beautiful. I was in the galactic heavens and Babaji flying by in the galactic heavens with his rocket trail of his legs just, I was like, hey, and before I could even acknowledge he's gone, off in the distance, you know. Um, and so, many times seeing Paramahamsa Yogananda, he would teach me things, and other people, even like what's his name? Bhagavatam. Swami Prima I'm not going to even try because I'm going to butcher his name, but different people that maybe are not known in our world that well, but some of them are, some of them aren't, from many different faiths, rabbis, from all of these amazing things, and also Native American spirits, Aboriginal spirits that taught me.
Can we
Um,
can we do a lightning round of I'll put up different photos. One or two might be paintings, and but it might be one or two angels. It might be Lemurian energy you'll be closing your eyes on. And what the goal would be, not that there's any goal here, just to allow, but if there's something anybody wants to reflect to the audience, so you're going to do the whole psychic medium, but we'll just call it basic listening. You're already a
Okay,
pro.
but let me just clarify, I'm not a
Oh, yeah.
medium, so,
No, no, no,
and
no.
I don't
But
consider myself a psychic either,
no,
so just,
but basic listening to the universe, to angels,
okay,
your open
yes.
heart allowing. But I was sitting on a couch in Austin, Texas, 10 or 12 years ago, and I heard go outside, take a photo of the house from angels. And these are all the archangels, the little guys, Metatron. Maybe we can start with that. Can you allow for all the angels to come in, Metatron, and just a lot of love and light? And then what's the reflection to all of us in words? Or vibe. People can put their hands out and maybe feel this. Not that you're a fireplace, but a little bit of sparkle and warmth coming through, or joy and delight.
What I would gather from Metatron is, come see the mysteries. I am the mystery. Metatron is the mystery. He was the original mystery of mystical theology. He became that. Come see the mystery. I am that. Come to me and you'll discover it.
And is there an explanation on his name that people should be aware of? Does it mean something?
Good question.
Good question.
Um, let me just kind of vibe and see if I receive anything. I haven't studied it, so
And your kitty cat just showed up right behind you. And she's getting on your chair and she's going to your right shoulder. She picked up on the high vibe and she's
yeah,
giving you. That's awesome.
you probably love Metatron. I actually have a statue of Metatron in my bedroom where I take off. So yeah, probably vibed into that one.
Well, if you want, we can jump to Joy and Archangel Michael, and I'll put up two quick photos and just two quick items from them or however they want to roll. But an angel and an angel, Archangel Michael and Joy, whichever one's coming through first. And if you want to do both, fantastic. What are you getting?
Sure. Let's see. I would say from Joy, it's, I what I see is I see Joy points to Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael points to Metatron, and you have to remember who Metatron is, right? He's Enoch. So remember, Enoch was a simple man like us, and now he walks with God, and he transformed into this grand archangel Metatron. What does this tell us? This tells us that there is a transformative journey that is available to us as human beings, and that this hand that is reached to us from God is available to human beings to become something more. So Joy points to Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael points to Metatron, and Metatron reminds us that he was once just a man.
That was awesome. If we can also, if you don't mind with your hands doing anything like you're at a concert, it could be anything. There's 50,000 ways to do your hands. Yep. Yeah. With kitty cat though being comfortable. If you could allow Lemurian light. Now that it's, I don't know how to do this one. Pink light, way beyond how to do it. A lot of knowledge, a lot of this. Not everyone has access. I don't know how to say it. A lot of sparkliness coming in though, and if you don't mind letting Lemurian influence come in,
Okay.
and then something to share for mankind, just to keep the chin up and know that everything is as it should be. Your kitty is so cute right now. She's peeking around your neck.
He's a really good guy. So what is ancient is also now. The pink energy is that of the redemption, which is available to all. And that comes through the Holy Spirit, the Holy Mother, the divine feminine brings that in. The Lemurian energy, what I'm feeling here is a lot to do with the divine feminine, and that's creation. It's bringing me to thinking about when I was in the mysteries, and oh, wow, I'm getting slammed. When I was in the mysteries schools, which were in the mystical mystery school, one of the things that you had to learn was to become a master of creation. And what that means is to become an understander, to become understanding. And in order to master creation, we have to understand what God has created, God's creation, how creation manifests, how creation works, and our part in creation, and how we assist creation. And that's all the divine feminine, because that's creation energy. That's the pink. That's the pink, and that's the redemption, because the redemption is the energy which pulls forward for transformation. What is ancient is available now. So reach for it.
I had muted my microphone. My dog went running to the front door. So fingers crossed, no clicking. And I'm going to do another quick one and then I'm going to mute my end so I don't have to do any editing. I've got an Arcturian for you. My ambassador, my number one, whatever. He said, though, that the bulbous head is a little 7% too much. So I'm going to use the classic off of Wikipedia.
Okay.
Okay. And then here's the full, but let me do the editing. There we go. Okay. If you don't mind connecting in, I'm going to hit the mute button though, and you're closing your eyes so I don't have to do that anymore.
I'm
And what are you getting?
immediately was taken back to an experience I had with an Arcturian, actually. It wasn't just one, it was a whole ship of them, where they showed them coming in, jumping on a slide from the heavens, which moved and meandered like this, waving down from heaven to earth. What this was bringing this higher construct to earth. The Arcturians have a particular purpose with us, which is to bring a higher pattern of consciousness and existence into the human potentiality, into our pattern. And so they ask you to receive it and to look at it almost like when you go to an amusement park and you jump on one of those little, well, big slides where it's just going down, going down. Imagine that you're jumping on a slide and that wave motion, and you're allowing that energy, that pattern to enter into you, which is new potential, new spiritual potential, new consciousness, new vibration, new frequency, that it's coming into you, just as they showed me the Arcturians, when they move around the planet, are sending this wavelength potential into the earth and into the mass consciousness of humankind, hoping that we will receive it. Remember that even when Christ came, he brought a new pattern of a potential for consciousness. They are bringing a new pattern as well. And if we receive it, we become more capable of the spiritual gifts, things like out-of-body travel, but also other spiritual gifts which allow us to receive vibration and frequency, which bring us to higher levels of understanding in the spiritual. And most importantly, the love that is emanating from God. And that is, love is the final pattern. Love is the final pattern. That's the goal. So allow them to help. Allow it to come in.
Beautiful. And if I can have you close your eyes for a Pleiadian to come in, Heinrich Erich A., except that that name does not cover the real syllables and is much longer a name. Unconditional love figure, if you and I were 5 running along and tripped and skinned our knees, it's not that it's not going to come over and pick us up, but there's sort of a more unconditional love allowing us to pick ourselves up. Still going to get a Band-Aid and get cleaned up. Don't worry about it. Heinrich Erich A., if you don't mind just allowing, if you need here's Archangel Michael for before we meet him on the other side of the pool at the pool party. Michael can whisper to you something about Heinrich Erich A., the Pleiadian, so you get a little word before you get the handshake and get the nod. I'm being very human right now on this. But have Heinrich Erich A., the Pleiadian, come in, catch something private if you want, get a nice hug or love. And then what does he have to share? And what do you have to share with all that?
As I'm immediately started feeling, I started seeing and hearing, started hearing Gregorian chant. Um, and I started seeing these monks in brown robes on a Pleiadian ship walking towards the door that goes into the ship. And immediately heard the word peace. When I traveled with the Pleiadians, their whole message is one of oneness and love, unconditional love. But there is a higher vibration associated with this understanding. You know, in the Pleiadian system, they live with 7 stars, and they also speak of the 7 tones of life, which are related to those 7 stars. You can read more about that in the book if you want to. But the 7 tones of life radiate these different pulses of unconditional love, each one bearing a different frequency and a different vibration to each of our different chakras, helping us to reallocate each of these energy centers that we have towards love, because the Pleiadians are all about love, but they are a very, very peaceful people. And again, these beings, these do not live in a mortal world. They live in a world of light and light. They are beyond the battles between good and evil. And so they live in peace, and they invite us to the same. And I would invite you to consider reading about those 7 tones, because they're placing emphasis on it and remembering that those 7 tones of life have great impact on the 7 chakras, and bringing those chakras and your energy centers in alignment with the concepts we've been talking about, which is basically love. But each of these 7 tones are an emanation of love. And by bringing those 7 different emanations into balance, it's just yet another one of those steps that we take, one of those initiations that we take that assist our soul in moving forward and closer to our goal. So remember peace. And I'm hearing the Gregorian chants, and I think it's because they emanate peace as well.
I have 2 photos. That was absolutely brilliant. And speaking of brilliant, I have 2 photos of the same object and I don't know, different times of the day. But if you could allow all 7 of those, and I'm going to lose all my English here, to come out from this photo, and then I'll do it the other way. They're both beautiful and brilliant. But if you could allow all the light in the world and the consciousness in the world, this to me represents universal love, or whatever I'm trying to say. But could you allow whatever comes out to come out and get an extra something? And I've lost the English, but you've got English and you're the adult in the room here. What are you getting, feeling, hearing, seeing, even smelling? If you wanted to get a good laugh, somebody might bring something in that's amazing, but more on the human plane.
When I raised my hands, the moment I raised up my hands, I saw a purple, burgundy, pinkish rose kind of coming out of that purple burst. And I immediately feel this energy that's coming through me as we're talking, and has been for a while here. This reminds me of the Pleiadians, because the Pleiadians, first of all, the purple is on their craft. There's a light on their craft that's purple-ish. And then it's also because when I went to their star system, there is a great deal of amethyst in their star system on the planet they took me to, their world, whatever it may end up being. Um, they had these beautiful caves where there was amethysts everywhere. They had an amethyst temple there that was literally just a temple built out of amethyst. Um, this color, you see it in their skies. They have these butterflies that are purple, pink, burgundy, and gold, and they're huge. They're huge. They're not little like the ones we have. Um, the surface of the planet is white. So there's this contrast. Um, Everyone moves through thought, and everything is moved by unconditional love and oneness. All are connected by this oneness. In this burst, this picture, I think one of the reasons you resonate with it so much is there is a great similarity to what you experience when you are traveling in the Pleiadian system. It's those colors, it's the bursting, and the rose is usually associated with the Holy Mother, ironically, and it took me a minute to put it together. I'm laughing because I just was, oh yeah, she came down in a Pleiadian ship. Okay, forgot. Already forgot. But yeah, the rose is associated with the Holy Mother, and okay, that makes sense now. I didn't put it together because in my early travels, I didn't see her there or anything, and so I kind of separate those travels from the time I saw her much later. So I just put that together. Um, and so uh, I think that what this for your listeners is receive this burst of energy as it is intended for you individually and personally, which is what I feel is it's intended for you to remove the shackles. And ironically, it's taking me, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent
But
here.
you're doing great. This is exactly where we needed to go. So I love this.
It's taking me to another experience that I had because I had experiences indicating that both the Holy Mother and Jesus came from the Pleiades. I'm not saying that that's true or not true. I'm just saying I had experiences saying that. I'm not God. I'm just sharing experiences. So I had these experiences, but another experience that I had in this time frame in the Pleiades at that time, I was taken to this stadium and Jesus was sitting there and he had shackles on his arms and his legs. And he looked at me very intensely and he said, part of your purpose is to remove the shackles that Christianity has put upon my soul. And I was overwhelmed because this was very early on when I was very, very young. And I was like, well, how am I going to do it? And he just kind of repeated himself. And he expressed some words indicating it wasn't that Christianity was wrong, it was the shackles, the boundaries, the burdens, the things that we see that we've talked about, which is limiting people in their experiences of God, I guess you could say. And I really don't want to define it because I'm just going to share it. And I accepted that task. And here I feel that this burst of light is offering to those who are listening an opportunity to remove whatever shackles are on you. Whatever shackles are on you, accept this burst of light from the Pleiadian system that it's okay for you to be unshackled and free. It's okay for you to know that God loves you God is a merciful, loving being, and he accepts you, and that you can seek him, and you do not need to be afraid. You do not have to wear shackles. You do not need to limit yourself. And by freeing yourself of whatever shackles you may have, you may open the door, the window, the slide of this energy that's been waiting that you can't let in because of whatever these shackles may be that are binding you. Sometimes without intention, society or other societal constructs puts shackles on people that limits them even from seeking God or touching God in ways that maybe they need to, and they don't realize that they've done so, right? It's okay to touch God. God wants you to be able to touch him. He's not unapproachable. He is yours, and you are his. Release whatever those shackles are on you and find love, because it's there. The freedom is there. And the Pleiadians are those who bring to you that unconditional love, the oneness, and they sing to you the seven tones of life. They'll help you to unravel this mystery in an ordered way that helps you to harness the energy in a way that will be comfortable and in a way that will lasso it in, so to speak, safely and prepare you for that next step.
Beautiful. A final interactive, although you and I might do one last little thing. I might blow stage and we might do something like energetically, but and then we'll have you wrap up. And again, thank you for all that. I'm going to put up 3 angels, 2 you've already had up before, plus Min, silhouette of an angel, my guardian angel, but 80,000 other people's guardian angel. Dr. Karen Wyatt, episode 110, August 30th of last year. This is the angel that stood at the foot of her bed when she was like 9 or 10 in all white. And just from that moment on, she knew she wanted to be a doctor. And Reverend Julie Moret, a month later in September of last year, 2024, she's on Agape Spiritual International's board with Michael Bernard Beckwith. She was in her 20s in New York City and had gotten away from intuition, and she's doing the corporate thing. And this angel came into her loft, and she lasted 30 seconds the first night, a minute the next night. And she tells it in her story. I can never retell anybody else's story, but she got comfortable again with her whole childhood, her bigger intuition listening. And so this is that angel. And there's still a third and fourth person who recognizes her. Oh, there was one guest who never came on. She's wonderful. And I'll just say she has more than 5 books, and she's totally intuitive. And she saw her right away and was like, that's Mother Hawaii, because she's light waves of energy and water. So a long introduction for Min. But here's Joy and here's Archangel Michael. And oh, I got it. I was going to forget everything. How I'm going to say it one way. How can we just can opener ourselves? Open up the crown chakra, connect to the universe. How can we forget about the details on the TV? And I'll do it at really kindergarten level. And you can just say yes to the universe. You don't even have to know the details. Before you go to bed, yes, universe, more love, please. Can you talk to 3 angels and do it the Marilynn Hughes patented way of you've got a little more to add. They might have some humor to add. They might be like, that's just fine, but consider this as well. Here's 3 angels, and then we've got Marilynn Hughes, founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation, 38 plus years, 40 years teaching, researching, remote viewer, out of body travel, literally 105 to 120, 39 books, 128 books, somewhere in there. And just tons of experience. But Marilynn, I'm going to take these away. What are you getting? And how can we say yes to the universe and accept more love and start to practice more love? What's their answer, your answer, and what do you have?
Well, I think I'll start with, my usual thing right off the top of my head is you always just approach with a prayer I want to know the truth, no matter what that is, even if it contradicts my previous version of reality. So basically you're letting the universe know, you're letting God know that you're willing to be taught, you're able to be taught. I think I would add what we talked about earlier, which is revoke all permissions to anything, negative or dark that you might be dealing with. And, trying to touch into these. Let's just give that a second here and see what happens. Um, I do think what you said is great. I think sometimes simplicity is the best thing. Open your chakra like a can opener. Sure, do it. I think that's absolutely, sometimes simplicity is the best way to go, because sometimes people get so caught up in the details that they get frustrated and they get overwhelmed, and then they lose focus, and then they don't want to do it anymore. Sometimes it really is just as simple as making a simple decision, and then just it's making that decision from one day to the next or 1 hour to the next of, you know, I still want to do this. I still want to choose my better self. So, for the next hour, I want to choose my better self. Okay, I'll do it for an hour. All right, next hour passes, still want to do it. Okay, put the phone away, do something else. Go read a spiritual text of value. Go read some, one of the things we didn't mention was that, I studied the ancient sacred texts of all major and minor world religions and all kinds of stuff, cultures around the world. There's a lot of really beautiful spiritual reading you can engage in rather than feeding your mind with the stuff that all of us are now tempted with. So you make a decision, you can make it, from 1 hour to the next, one day to the next, 15 minutes to the next. You can do it like that. Um, but and my usual answer for these things is, the prayer, meditation, and spiritual reading, which is the meditation. I always tell people try to get up to 3 hours if you want to get to the vibrational state for out of body travel. If you don't have to do 3 hours if you're not trying to do that. You can start short. You can start with smaller bouts of meditation. And then if you really want to have an out of body experience, then consider doing the longer bouts of 3 hours, but you want to have the prayer and the meditation, the talking to God, listening to God, and then you need spiritual reading. So you're feeding your soul something that's useful, that's going to be helpful. One of the reasons the ancient sacred texts and the mystical theology texts, I'll treat them separately, but the ancient sacred texts are so important because these are the last words of the masters, those who went before us, who actually did finish up here, and they left their last words for us of what they discovered about how to finish up here, how to graduate, how to run the final lap on Earth and go to the next level, reach the ascension, and move up to the next level of evolution. So these texts are gold. Mystical theology texts are the science of, the soul purification. So mystical theology texts are also gold because they teach us how to do this intrusive self-examination where we actually, go through our own internal, uh, cleansing, path of purification. So these are all things that we can do that help us to start this process. But then taking it back, going to Min and these angels, I do think that there is a simpler way for people who are just starting, which is making that simple decision of from 1 hour to the next, I choose love. I choose love over hate. I choose love over fear. I choose love over anger. I choose to be calm and peaceful over anger. I choose understanding over misunderstanding. I choose understanding over discord. You know, I choose love over whatever you want to put there. You know, I just choose to love. And you do it from 1 hour to the next. You see something that upsets you, like, okay, I choose to love. It's okay they don't agree with me. It's okay that I think they're wrong. It's okay that they did something that I think is really stupid. You know, they're human. I'm going to turn this thing off. And for the next hour, I'm going to engage in something else. So you can do something simpler where you start simpler by making a simple choice of love and then take it from there. Take one step at a time if that's what you need to do so that you don't overwhelm yourself and then end up quitting, right? Does this make sense?
Totally. And I had my cat come visit. If you're rewatching this, she's right on the other side, and I don't know how to describe her. I think it's Calico. I should know my own cat, but I'm not good with words terminology. I found that book cover, and I just want to show it for 2 seconds. It's on my website. I think I'm an Amazon affiliate now, so like you get I've never gotten a commission yet, but I think you get 10 cents or something if someone buys through your website. A couple final steps, and then we're gonna have you leave us with a mantra 3 times repeated. I love doing that. I think you've done it for us before, but something simple and fun that if they repeat it with you or they put their hands out, they can feel you as you repeat it 3 times. But I'm gonna light some sage for 10 seconds here. You're in Arizona, I'm in Texas. We're not too far away from each other, but time and space isn't what you think it is. And a few years from now, it was Paul Sugar who said something like this. That it was just the other day, he was listening to Angels or something, and he said something incredible, and I'm going to do the best I can. It was private, but something about, yeah, even time is shifting a little. He knows how to say it. Next time I get him on, I'll get him to repeat it. I point to him. You know him. I know him. He's
Yeah,
amazing. And a
yes.
big shout out to Paul if you're actually watching this far to the end. So,
Oh.
Paul, that was awesome. I'll tell him now he's hooked. Okay, here's the sage. Allow for sage, but let your whole crew, international, galactic, interdimensional, consciousness and love to come in. What's the extra or extras you're getting beyond linear sage? And folks at home, breathe through the mouth. Ask angels to make it nice. Ask them to get you out of your head into your heart. It's been a long day, a week, month. Welcome to being human. Ask for sage to come in. It might smell like campfire smoke or cookies. It doesn't have to smell any one way. Marilyn, what are you getting in Arizona? Getting the sage, okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, and then something extra so people know no limits is no limits.
Lavender, pine, cinnamon.
You're invited back. Okay, here we go. I'm going to snub this out. Sometimes I've said this now twice, and 2 times balls of light have flown by. Marilyn, you're a professional manifester or requester. If you want to ask for angels to fly by in light energy form, do so. Um, You can never predict it though, so who knows? And then half the time they do show, they don't show. The guest sees it, I don't see it. I see it, the guest doesn't see it. We both see it. We've had interdimensional Jesuses fly by with a professor from ASU. That happened during a taping. Okay, there was one more thing. Oh, I got to put my hands up. And so this is just love and above, not my bill paying side. I go right back to thinking as soon as we get off. Whoops. Welcome to be. Okay, I'm gonna put my hands up. If you don't mind using a couple adjectives and let Angels really run the show, but boy, my hands just lit up a little. What are you feeling? What's an adjective for the energy?
Electric, and I do see some like one straight line and a squiggly line in between our hands. Not sure what that means.
Okay, I'm gonna whoosh and blow. My microphone's up top today. I'm gonna choose aloha, love from Hawaii, and I'm on the
Kokopelli,
Hawaii.
Kokopelli,
Yes,
Kokopelli.
and I just had a flash of some sort. I have no idea what that was. Okay. No idea what that was. I don't know if it was outside the house, inside the house. Here comes whooshing though. How about them apples?
Oh, and there's a star in the center now between our thumbs, right in here. Kokopelli. And what here is what's coming to me is that this is This is a portal right here. This is a portal, and it has to do because I'm seeing this from where uh, from the native lands, a place I used to live actually, where I used to actually bundle my own sage. This is part of the area where the Native Americans would have watched the star beings come through these portals into the lands, and it's also where Grandmother Skywalker came to me, and I painted her because she was so beautiful. She would walk amongst the mesas, between mesa to mesa, with her horse, her singular horse. She's one of the old ones.
That is super special. I love it. I lied. One more. I Geronimo. I keeps popping in. I kept not bringing in Geronimo. I'm putting up the photo of him older. He steals the show. He's fun. You'll get something before I can even put the photo up. And we've done this before with Geronimo, but have him wrap it up for us. What's his mantra? He suggests that maybe you say 3 times. That's a first. What's keeping it simple? And he's action, 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 dry wit, humor, slang. But oh my God, what a big heart for all, enough to go around for all of us.
You have not yet become that which you are becoming. You have not you have not yet become that which you are becoming. You have not yet become that which you are becoming.
Brilliant. Marilynn Hughes, this was a whopper. And I'm gonna ask people to like, share, comment, subscribe. But look, if you've gotten this far, you're here at the end, and this is in the years ahead too. Emojis count. Put emojis down. You're not committing to anything, but you're helping others discover this video. All of Marilynn's details will be below the video. And Marilynn, big hugs to you. I loved it today. Thank you very
Big
much.
hugs back.
Thank- And we'll do this again. Thank you very much.
Yes, we'll do this again. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers.